get started. So a few house rules. So as most of you know, I see a lot of familiar names here. So thank you for joining. For anyone who's new, I'm Jill. I am one of, here, let's go ahead and get my little webinar started. All right. All right. Let's do this. All right, so for everyone coming in right now, I have everyone on mute. So if you want to put all of your questions, comments, anything that you have for me, please go ahead and put it in the chat box. I'm going to check the chat at the end of the webinar. So if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in there. I do have to keep an eye on my phone as people are coming in because it's just me tonight. So I have to make sure that I'm admitting everyone in. So if I'm looking over, that's what I'm doing. So welcome. Combating imposter syndrome. This is something that, I guess for those, I've been talking for a few minutes to everyone who's been in here, but I'm Coach Jill. I am one of Amalevita's certified health coaches. So go back there. All right, well, here we go. So I'm one of Amalevita's certified health coaches specializing in body confidence. And so self-confidence is something that I have been researching and experiencing and coaching on for a long time. And so that's why I'm really excited to talk about this topic, because I've experienced it myself, and I guess you could say suffered from it myself for a really long time. And so I'm just really excited to talk about it. So for everyone coming in, I think we have most people in here right now. I'm going to keep everyone on mute. Just repeating myself, go ahead and put all of your chats, questions, comments, everything like that in the chat box. Great. So we're Amalevita. Like I said, I've seen a lot of familiar names here, so I'm sure most of you are familiar with what we do. So we're a career, leadership, life, and health coaching company, and it's in our name, Amalevita. Love life. We help people to love their lives, whether it's through transitioning to careers, leadership coaching, health coaching. I'm a health coach myself, even just life coaching. We help people to identify what it is they really, really want in life and help them to figure out a game plan and release some of those blocks and any of those barriers that you might be experiencing that's preventing you or keeping you stuck. So we really help people to move through, to step into their best self and really start to enjoy and love their lives. So I'm Jill. I feel like I just keep introducing myself over and over again. But I know that as some of you, still more people are coming in, Coach Teague was unavailable tonight, so I'm taking over. But I'm one of Amalevita's certified health coaches here, specializing in body confidence and self-confidence. So a lot of the work that I do is improving on emotional health, spiritual health, physical, mental, social health. So imposter syndrome was something that I offered to take over from Coach Teague pretty quickly, because not only have I experienced it myself, but this is something that really ties into a lot of the coaching that I do myself. So, all right, so today's agenda. So this is just a high level view of what we're gonna touch on. We're going to dive into what imposter syndrome is, and also looking at different ways that we can work around that. So different characteristics, warning signs, coping mechanisms, and how we can really combat imposter syndrome. And of course, coping strategies as well. And I'm going to have a few group discussion questions, I think just like one or two in there. So if you guys, when I ask those, feel free to go ahead and just put them in the chat, and I'll just look over some of them, share some of them, and we'll just keep on going. All right. So what is imposter syndrome? I don't even like the word is syndrome, because it makes it seem like it's something that we're diagnosed with or something that we have to carry on forever. But the thing with imposter syndrome is that it's something that it's a belief that it's learned. So if it's something that we've learned throughout our lives, that means it can be unlearned. So keep that in mind as we move through this. So what exactly is imposter syndrome? It's this belief of less than, or that we are lacking skills, we are lacking something in our lives that is keeping us stuck, that is keeping us from really showing up as the best self, or as deserving for a happy life, we are undeserving of a relationship, the career we want. We kind of find excuses to support that self-doubt, belief. So a lot of that comes with, we don't have the skills, or that we are not smart enough, we are not experienced enough. We're convinced that other people's recognition, that we're undeserving of any praise or recognition, or we create excuses when people give us compliments. That was a big thing for me for a really long time. Anytime someone would compliment me on my work, I would find an excuse to make up for it. So, oh, Jill, you did a really great job on that. Oh yeah, well, it was too short. I had all of this stuff to finish, and da-da-da. Sound familiar? So a lot of these beliefs, it's that we're undeserving is essentially that common thread. We're undeserving of success. That our accomplishments are not good enough. And also continually doubting to repeat past successes. So any of our successes from the past, we feel that we might not have deserved this, or we lucked out. So like, oh, phew, I was successful at that, but that's definitely never going to happen again. Or finding things that are wrong with your achievements. Focusing on what is wrong or what we don't have is something that's so common, not only with imposter syndrome, but with just humans. I feel like that's something that, we're not really taught at a young age to, focus on gratitude, or focus on positive thoughts, or, beliefs, or anything like that. Because a lot of these self-doubts and these beliefs, especially with imposter syndrome, they stem typically from a younger age, because that's where we are, where our brains are sponges. So we're observing all of these things. And if we don't take care of where that wound, that belief first started, because it's usually at a young age, we're really not aware. So we kind of move through life with this belief that we don't really realize as a problem until adulting, right? Hashtag adulting. And we come to this realization that why am I not succeeding? Why am I not doing these things? Why am I kind of stuck in this mindset of I'm undeserving, and so that's where, midlife crisis come into play, right? It's that having this belief that we are just undeserving. And so point of me saying that all of that is that is learned. So like I said, just because it has been learned, and these beliefs and these habits are learned, that means they can be unlearned. And that's what we're going to dig into today. So a few other of these. So imposter syndrome tends to creep up on us. It's not something that we necessarily experience all the time. It might think like we experience it all the time, because like I said, our brains are kind of wired to focus on all of the things that are going wrong, or what we don't have, or what we haven't achieved yet. And so it tends to crop up, not all the time, but during times of transition, or big changes in our lives, or when we're confronted with a challenge or something that is unknown to us. It's normal. Humans are not wired for change. We're not wired for change. And so sometimes when we approach change, or a transition, or a big challenge, our brains tend to identify that as a threat, or something's wrong, because change, can make us feel a little bit anxious or stressed out. And so our brain is like, uh-oh, that change, even though it might be a good change, our brain still kind of identifies it as something bad. And so that's where we start to have these anxious feelings, or these stressed out feelings. And so just being aware that this tends to be more of a conditional belief, a conditional thing, is having that awareness. Awareness is so key, because when we are aware of what imposter syndrome is, how it comes up in our life, when and where it comes up in our life, when we have that awareness, it can help us remind ourselves, oh, you know what? I did that imposter syndrome webinar with Coach Jill, and she gave me these tools. Let's work through that. So awareness around this is so key, and that's what we're going to do in the beginning of this. And last thing on this slide, imposter syndrome with this lackness, this not enoughness, is another belief is that we are only deserved limited happiness. You know, so we tend to self-sabotage when things are too good. I don't know if anyone, I can't see faces right now, but let me know if you've heard of the book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And they talk about this upper limit problem. And so it's essentially that we tend to cap ourselves off at success, or we tend to cap ourselves off at happiness or love or joy or whatever it might be. And so when we hit that limit and we're trying to push through that limit, we tend to self-sabotage because we've capped ourselves off. So we want to work through these identifiers and of course these tools that I'll be sharing to help us break that, so we don't have to cap ourselves off, and so we don't have to self-sabotage. All right, quiz time. So this is just something that, just some questions that I would love just to find out from you guys, you know, where you're at right now in terms of imposter syndrome. So let me know in the chat if you have ever experienced anything like this, or any sort of these questions or any beliefs that might have come up. So do you chalk your success up to luck, timing, or error, computer error? Do you believe if I can do it, anybody can? Do you agonize over even the smallest flaws in your work? So like I was talking about before, this is something that I still do. I still struggle with this a little bit. Not struggle, I'm working through it. But looking at not the big picture, or not everything that you've accomplished. You just kind of pull out those small threads of this thing wasn't working. You know, like I said before, when you get that compliment, oh, no, well, I messed up this part and that person didn't say that, whatever. Point out those smallest flaws. Are you crushed by even constructive criticism, seeing it as evidence of your ineptness? That's something else that I've definitely experienced myself. When you do succeed, do you secretly feel like you fooled them again? So not deserving of that success, or not deserving of that accomplishment. You kind of feel like you beat the system, or that you fooled people, or that you kind of tricked them into thinking that about you. Do you worry that it's just a matter of time before you're found out? So kind of that tying back into that, oh, I fooled them again. So just would love to know, do any of those resonate with you guys? And if so, which ones? Because like I keep saying, you know, the one about pulling out the smallest flaws, or things that are not right or not enough. So I'll give you guys a few more minutes or seconds. All right, awesome. All right, so let me actually check on some of these chats. I do feel like I fooled them again, faking my way through it. Yes, the big leap. I actually put that in my resources page at the end. So, as most of you know, I'm sure, side note, I'm going to send a recording of this webinar along with some other resources that I have at the end. So don't worry about, you know, taking any notes or anything. Well, of course you can take notes, but anything towards the end, like resources and links and everything, I'll be sharing those in an email. So yes, if I can do it, anyone can. Absolutely. Faking my way through it. They're going to find me out. Yes. So 5 out of 6 isn't good. No, John, this is no judgment here. Cause this is, you know, we're creating this awareness around of what we can work through. You know, like I said in the beginning, this is something that it's learned. We've learned these habits. We've learned these beliefs of not enoughness, which means we can unlearn it. So this presentation, this webinar tonight, this is meant to help you, give you guys some tools and awareness around what you can shift, what you can change, so that you're more prepared to work through this on your own. I'm gonna check a few more chats. Overthinking everything in case someone finds a flaw. Oh yes, overthinking, oh my gosh. That needs to go right on there. Absolutely, Sophie. overthinking everything. And worry and overthinking is a form of self-sabotage. And that's something actually that I got from the Big Leap, that I learned that. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so true. Because we're constantly, when we worry, or when we're overthinking, you know, we're worrying about all the things that could go wrong, And the more that we have that belief, the more it is ingrained, and that almost becomes a habit. It becomes the norm for us. So we want to be aware of these patterns so we can shift them. I agonize over the smallest flaws. I'm right there with you, Valerie. Absolutely. So these tools and these practices is what's going to help us to break those negative loops, that constant loop of not enoughness, worrying about the smallest things, ignoring my qualifications, and thinking I should just be thankful. Ooh, thankful to be here. Julianne. Ooh, that one, I felt that one. That one, ooh, I felt like a visceral reaction to that. I think that one really hit home for me too. I can definitely, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about qualifications and thinking just to be thankful to be here. It's kind of that weird dynamic of being grateful that you are here, but just being grateful that you are here. I got that. All right. Keep sharing these, you guys. These are really great. Like I said, for anyone who is new, I'm manning the chat and the webinar. So if I'm looking to my phone, that's what I'm doing. So keep the comments coming. Thank you, guys. All right. So imposter syndrome sounds like exactly like these. Just being thankful. Just be thankful that you're here. Just be thankful that you made it. I got lucky. Oh, I was just in the right place at the right time. I really lucked out this time. Like we kind of talking about this, if I can do it, anyone can. You know, I had connections, or I knew someone, or, you know, someone just must have failed before me. They felt sorry for me. All right, this is something, so this is what I was speaking from before. Entrepreneurs. So I would love to know, do we actually have any entrepreneurs or anyone that is on tonight that is working on maybe like a side hustle or passion project or anything like that? I'd love to know. Just maybe say yes, or maybe if you are an entrepreneur here. Pivoting into my own business. Okay, great. So Carrie, this is great. So you're going to be ahead of the game, pivoting into your new business. Awesome, awesome. Congrats, by the way. Side hustle. Okay, good. So this is going to speak to some of you for sure. And this is where I really, Katrina, would love to, but I'm terrified. All right, let's work through this. So entrepreneurs, this is something that, it was a new experience. This is when I really first started experiencing imposter syndrome myself. And when I first became an entrepreneur, so a few years ago, I first started off on my own business. I was terrified. And there were so much waiting until I was ready. Spoiler alert, you'll never be ready. You just got to take that big leap, right? So entrepreneurs, so this is something that, you know, we find ourselves personally accountable, right? Even if we have a team, you know, it's our own business. So we feel that we have, you know, we have this added pressure that we have to be perfect, that we have to go into, you know, launch our business and be perfect. But the only thing is that when we have this belief of imposter syndrome, or like, why me? Why would anyone choose my business? I feel like I could go in a whole webinar talking about that. But, you know, like, why me? I'm not qualified. I have 6 months of experience compared to, you know, Betty Sue, who has 20 years of experience. Why would someone want me? But that worrying and that thinking, that overthinking, it's that self-sabotage. Because guess what? There are millions and millions of people out there in the world who could be a match for you that are not a match for the other person. So just something to think about. Procrastination is something that is self-sabotage. You know, we think that we're not good enough. We're not ready enough, right? We're too scared to take that leap. We're too scared to move forward or trust that we are ready. I'm afraid of messing up before I prove myself. That was something that I experienced, I think, throughout my entire time as an entrepreneur. You know, failure to take goal-oriented action. You know, and again, it's that wanting to move forward or being too afraid. I have way too much to do. I have too much to learn. I have too many skills that I have to learn or be qualified for. And we never actually take that step. And discounting prices. Oh my gosh, this is something that I had to do. I didn't think that I was good enough. You know, why would anyone want to coach with me? You know, when I first started off, I've only been at it for a month and I was discounting my prices before I even launched anything. Yes, awesome. So these are all, and here's another thing too, is that this is normal. Everything that you guys are sharing, you know, if you're following the chat, you're not alone in this whatsoever. But again, because these are learned behaviors and learned beliefs, that means we can unlearn them. And entrepreneurs, affecting your bottom line. So this is something that, you know, playing small, right? That this is something that, yes, using perfect as an excuse. Yes, perfectionism, trying to be perfect. This is something that as an entrepreneur, I did all the time. I would spend so much time on the smallest details. And I thought that I was doing it because I wanted it to be the best product possible. But really, I was subconsciously or unconsciously self-sabotaging myself, because that constant, that obsession with trying to be perfect or change the smallest things or being afraid to hit send or post or whatever it is that worrying that we're just self-sabotaging ourselves. So imposter syndrome, accompanied by unhealthy coping mechanisms. So over preparing. So this is really tying into kind of that entrepreneur. And even if you're not an entrepreneur, you know, these are things that you can apply in everyday life, even with work, you know, that you feel that you want to, you know, do a presentation or submit a project or something. It still can be applied into so many areas of your life. Same thing with even your own personal goals. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be in this entrepreneur mindset or this way of life, but a lot of those things can be applied into so many different areas. Okay, so over preparing, like I said, just worrying about, you know, that constant worrying of over preparing, trying to make up for what we think is our lack of skills or our lack of ability. So over preparing to make up for that. That was something I did all the time when I first started off as coaching. I would write the smallest notes on every single thing before I presented or before I did a live or, you know, even talked with my very first clients. I'd write down everything. I was over preparing because I didn't think that I was qualified enough. So I'm just going to touch on some of these. So maintaining a low or ever-changing profile. So not being secure, not being confident in yourself and what your capabilities are, you know, kind of doing that wishy-washy thing, you know, that I'm always going to be shifting because I'm not really good at anything at one thing. So I'm going to try out a few other things just to make myself seem like I'm well-versed. But it's still what's the word I'm looking for? It's still motivating that belief of undeservingness or not enoughness. Procrastination, we talked about, never finishing. Oh my gosh, this was something that I did all the time as well, is never finishing anything that I started. I would have all of these ideas like, yes, I want to do this and I want to create this. And I would never finish any of those really good ideas. Well, I guess ideas that I thought were good at the time. That never finishing those and never completing them. It's that form of self-sabotage, never actually following through, never taking that big leap to start your business, or whatever it might be. Just really being aware of how those actions, what results come from those actions. All right, I'm going to take a minute to admit other people in. All right, cool. All right, so these are what we want to ask ourselves. What will happen if I never change that pattern, right? So like I just said, being aware of what's a result from these actions or inaction. Inaction is still a choice of an action, right? What will happen if I never change this pattern? What if I always self-sabotage? What if I always over-prepare? What if I never finish anything or I procrastinate? What price would I pay? You know, it's asking ourselves that what if? What opportunities would I miss? What goals, what life am I missing out on? What options or possibilities would be closed to me or not offered to me? Just thinking about that self, not necessarily to instill, you know, this fear or this, you know, lack then, or, you know, just judgment on ourselves. we just want to ask ourselves, what will happen if this never changes? So we want to give ourselves that opportunity to move forward. A few thoughts on failure. So for all of my entrepreneurs out there, I'm just kidding, even not entrepreneurs, this failure applies for everyone. And it's this, so there's, I forget who actually said the quote, maybe one of you guys will know, but is essentially super simple. If you're not failing, you're not trying. And I feel like there's so many different things, different quotes, different memes, whatever it is about failure, but failure is really our own experience, right? It's something that we've all experienced on our own in different capacities, you know? So someone's form of failure is very different than what you define as failure. So I think just understanding what that looks like for you so that you can be aware of how to take action from there. Because how we handle failure after is what is most important. That's where the real work and the real growth comes from. Because I know when I've failed more times than I can count or even recall, is that in the beginning, when I was first exposed to real failure, is that I would just kind of hide out, and I would hide. I would just curl up in a ball. I would feel sorry for myself. I would play the victim card. I would remind myself all of a sudden of all of the failures that I had in life, even if it was a failure with my entrepreneur, with my own business. You know, I would think like, oh, well, you know, so-and-so didn't want to date me back in 8th grade. Cool, great, awesome. And it's just like all of a sudden you have this overflow of self-doubt and all of these reminders of failures. But the thing is that we want to change our story to how we feel around failure. And so it's shifting that, being aware of our thoughts. And there's actually a really great tool that I'm going to share with you guys a little bit later on how we can really implement this. Is it being aware of redefining failure? Because failure doesn't have to mean it's a bad thing. Because now that I've redefined what failure means to me as failure is an opportunity to evolve. Failure is an opportunity to pivot and try something new. Because maybe that one thing wasn't meant to work out. And so realizing that, okay, you know what? Failure doesn't have to be something I have to fear. Failure can provide so much context, so much growth, so many things to learn. Of course, it's going to feel really crappy. I'm not denying the feelings or the emotions that come with failure. We can feel it. Let that feel it. Failure is, again, how we feel about failure is something that is learned, which means we can unlearn it and relearn new ways to think about it. And another thing is take criticism seriously, but not personally. So that's, you know, if you you just have to be aware that failure is it's a result from something. It doesn't mean anything about you. Just because something failed externally doesn't make you any less of a person internally. So failure, just really focusing on how can we shift our mindset around that and make failure as something positive. Great, I failed. Now I get to learn. Now I have more evidence in the bank of how I can learn and move forward. Checking, admit. Thank you. All right. Cool. All right, back in it. Ooh, so stress. This is another thing that tends to follow failure, right? It's this feeling of, oh my gosh, everything is spiraling, right? We get really, really stuck in our heads. And that monkey mind chatter in our heads can be extremely overwhelming and terrifying. But, and I'll get in this in a little bit, but our thoughts are just thoughts. They're not facts. And so when we start to feel stress come on, so this is why I'm talking about this, because we want to know what stress feels like in our bodies so that we can pivot and do something to actually make us feel better, be proactive with it. And so stress has this sweet spot. So not enough is low motivation, poor performance, just don't want to do anything. But then too much really does a number on us. You know, poor performance, high anxiety. You know, we want to make sure that we're in this sweet spot of maintaining stress so that it doesn't spiral. And then, because the more stress we feel, the more anxiety we might feel, the more that those imposter syndrome beliefs are going to percolate and really surface. So we really just want to become familiar with these patterns of, like I said, You know, what results are going to come from these actions or inactions, and how am I going to feel? So becoming familiar with those patterns and habits and what stress feels like will help us to stay on top of our game so that we can keep moving forward. And Roshan, yes, I'll be sending the slides and the recording and some other resources for you guys after. All right, so this is what I was just talking about. Our thoughts are not facts. I don't know if anyone has heard that before, but I recently heard it within the last year, and it's something that, you know, kind of when you've read things over and over again, or you've seen things a bunch of times, but then you experience something and all of a sudden you see that same thing that you've seen over and over again in a different light. Well, this is what happened with me with our thoughts are not facts. We don't actually have to believe all of the thoughts that we have. And if we did believe all of the thoughts we have, the world would be absolutely insane, because we have about, well, more insane than it is right now, I guess. But we have about 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. Almost 90% of them are repetitive, and about 70% of them are negative, which is crazy to think. So that's why having so much awareness around these patterns, and when we start to feel those feelings of imposter syndrome, what are the thoughts that are going through your head? Observing your thoughts, you know, the way that we talk to ourselves and about ourselves, is that actually serving us? You know, it's a lot of that in that imposter syndrome mindset. We get a lot of those, how we talk about ourselves. Oh, well, gosh, I would never get that promotion. Oh my gosh. Oh geez, so-and-so. Yeah, I know. There's no way I would do it. Must be nice. I think I've said that too many times that I care to admit. Oh, must be nice. Oh gosh, I wish that I had that. We have to be aware not only how we're talking to ourselves when we start to feel this imposter syndrome creep up, but how we talk about ourselves, because that's still fueling that negative thought loop that we want to break. Challenge those self-doubt thoughts. So ask yourself, is that true? Am I really never going to be successful? Am I really never going to find a relationship? Am I really whatever that is? Challenge that. Challenge those thoughts. Because the funny thing about our thoughts is that they're not rooted in reality. So if you've ever actually listened or observed your thoughts, it's constant back and forth. Well, I really want to go to this party, but I really shouldn't. But I kind of want to see people, but I know I really shouldn't. Well, it's back and forth. That's why we want to challenge those things. So how we challenge those self-doubting thoughts is finding evidence to disprove that. So what that looks like is, and as we've, you know, lived out our entire lives, we have so much negative or evidence proving against these beliefs, because no one teaches us these things growing up, right? So finding evidence to disprove it, even if it's the smallest piece of evidence that we can find, use that to fuel, to disprove those self-doubt beliefs. And when you can't find evidence, take action. Take action. That could be the smallest action. So for example, my entrepreneurs out there, share one thing, share one product, or share one piece of your website, or share one part of your post with someone, or share whatever it is. Take the smallest action, or even if it's buying business cards, whatever that looks like. If you can't find evidence to disprove these beliefs, take action, because action creates confidence. So this is this tool that, okay, I'm checking chats now. I know deep down, action is the antidote to my fear. Yes, Carrie. Yes. Absolutely. Because fear is another thing, just like failure. What's our story around fear? What do we tell ourselves about fear? Is it fear that's something that we have to run away and hide from? Or can fear teach us something? What can we learn from fear, from pushing through our fear? Is it really something that is going to prevent us from taking that action and living our best life? Action absolutely is the antidote to fear. You might surprise yourself. Just try it. So TFAR, so this is where I was going with what I was talking about before. So our thoughts trigger feelings, and our feelings influence our actions or inaction. And then our action or inaction is what creates our results. So for example, procrastination. So what you want to do is, so procrastination is something that it's an end result, right? So what actions am I doing that, or you know what, actually, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. This will be easier to follow. Here we go. So we want to bring awareness to this. So asking ourselves, starting with results, what are the results that are not serving me? So let's say procrastination or not getting work done. Okay, so what actions or inaction am I taking that's leading to that result? Well, I'm constantly focusing on everything that's wrong with the project. I am getting distracted. I'm scrolling on social media. I'm doing everything to avoid. I'm procrastinating. Well, how am I feeling right now because of my actions? So we're reverse engineering. So how am I feeling because of my actions? Well, I'm feeling really stressed and really anxious, and I just feel really crappy and tired and overexerted. Okay, well, what thoughts do I have that aren't making me feel my best? So that's being aware of those thoughts. What thoughts am I telling myself? Am I telling myself I'm not good enough? I am undeserving. So-and-so can do better. I don't know why I'm not unqualified. I don't have the skills. Wherever those thoughts are, we just want to bring awareness to that process. Thoughts create feelings, create actions, create results. We want to start with the results first. What results are you aware of that are not serving you? So then we can shift to changing your patterns. So what new result do you want? Well, I want to launch my business, or I want to land that job, or whatever that is. Okay, well, what actions are you doing to align with that desired result? Well, I should be doing some more informational interviews, or, applying for that job that I'm afraid to apply to because I think I'm undeserving or unqualified for. Okay. So what do you need to feel in order to inspire those actions? Well, I want to feel confident, and I want to feel secure, and I want to feel good. Okay, so what thoughts can you tell yourself to start triggering a more positive feeling? Okay, well, I can do this. I am deserving of this. I am qualified. And we're actually going to touch on some of those thought shifts in a little bit because, well, I'll wait till I get to that. So really just observing, bringing awareness to the patterns, what is not serving you, and then changing them. I always highly recommend writing this down. This is what I do all the time. Just write everything down so you have that action plan, that game plan of how you can achieve these new results. All right, admitting a few people. Okay, moving on. All right, so this is coming down to this whole kind of this big leap, the big leap, right? Go big. I know that even sounds, that's where we can come, where we're confronting our fears, right? I'm afraid of being seen. I'm afraid of being heard. I'm afraid of failure. I'm afraid of, people not liking me, whatever that is. Challenge that. We can't wait until we have all of the skills, that we're all prepared, that we're most confident, whatever it is, because we're always going to find excuses never to move forward. So take micro actions, those actions, right? Action is the antidote to my fear. Carrie, I think I'm going to keep that one. Don't worry, I'll give you credit because I think that's so important. Those micro actions, that's what builds confidence, right? You think about when you're a little kid and you're walking, you're taking your first few steps. Little kids, they don't just give up and they end up just crawling until they're adults, right? They take those little steps each day. They get a little bit farther each day to build that confidence. Changing our story around fear. I know we kind of talked about this, but kind of shifting to that. Fear allows for possibility. Fear gives me avenues to try and paths to go down that I haven't gone down before. It shows more about me. I can uncover skills about myself. Change that story around fear so we don't have to run away from it. Do one thing each day to bring you closer to your goals, whatever that looks like. Let's say you want to start working out before work in the mornings. Maybe one day you just put on your shoes and your workout outfit and you just walk around the block. Great. That's bringing you closer to your goal of, let's say if you wanted to run a marathon. I don't know anyone that wants to do that right now, but mad props if you do. So just making things easier for us, micro actions, scale it down. Doesn't have to be, we're not going to be, successful or, $1 million businesses overnight. Small steps. So this is what I was talking about with those thoughts. So these affirmations. I know Coach Teague is really big on affirmations. So when we start to shift those thoughts, right? So going back to that TFAR model, that thoughts, feelings, actions, results. When we start to tell ourselves new thoughts, we have to remember that we've spent most of our lives thinking and believing a certain way. That's why you're all here tonight, right? That's what I got to. I got to this point of that all of my thoughts, that they were with me my whole life. So we have to be easy on ourselves when we start to shift these, because remember, we're not wired for change. Even if it's change for the better, we're still going to find ways to fall back into old habits, to fall off our path. That's okay, because remember, we want to change our story to failure. Failure allows us to observe what went wrong so that we can keep working towards what goes right. So point of me saying all that is, when our thoughts, if we've been thinking I'm unworthy and I'm undeserving and I am not enough our whole life, if we just start saying I am worthy, I am deserving, I am enough, it's too much of a shift. It's kind of too abrupt for us to process. So what I love to say, and this really does work because it seems so much more approachable, is I'm in the process of becoming the best version of myself. I'm in the process of deserving the success. I'm in the process of becoming a creative, intelligent person, believing all of my ideas are good and deserve to be heard. I am in the process of landing that dream job because I deserve to be happy with my career. I'm in the process of launching, becoming confident and secure and excited enough to launch my own business because I deserve to and because I can. I am enough. That's the only one that I'm just going to say that I don't say I'm in the process of, because I truly believe that I am enough is something that needs to be taught at a very young age. So just, I am enough. I am enough. And then, so these are the questions we want to ask ourselves. So kind of how those questions that we asked before of not really wanting to instill fear of what could happen or what could I be missing out on. So this is when we want to shift that to more positive, healthy ways of introducing these new thoughts and these new beliefs into our lives. So what would I rather be feeling? So circling back to that TFAR model, right? So all of these positive affirmations, I'm in the process of, how do I want that to feel? Because that feels good. So let's keep doing that. What would I like the new positive voices to say in my head? And what would I rather do in this situation? And what would I do if fear were not a factor? So really just that I'm in the process of plugging that in is really, really powerful. All right, so wanting to learn more, and I'll include some of these links in the follow-up for you guys if you want to. So the secret thought of successful women, this is a really amazing book that Coach Teague suggested. And so I kept it on here because I've actually heard really good things about it. Amy Cuddy's TED Talk, Your Body Language May Shape Who You Are. And then any Brene Brown fans out there? Wonderful book, Daring Greatly. I think that was that book I first started reading, and I was almost afraid of it because it talked about vulnerability and I was not ready to read it. But then when I finally made it back, I read it again and it was life-changing. And then of course, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And that's a phenomenal book. So that's really touching on everything that I talked about, is that upper limit problem that we have where we cap out at our happiness, and little by little creates a lot, kind of those concepts that I threw in there. All right. So I know I'm actually just going to go to questions because I know you guys had some really, really amazing comments here. So what questions do you have for me right now? And I'll give you guys some time to come up with those, because I'll touch on some of these comments too that we've had. So let me know, what questions do you have? I know this was a lot as well. And I'm just checking, some people had to hop back in. All right. So I know this was a lot, right? This was really a lot to process, because, when we go back to that TFAR model of being aware of our thoughts, that being aware of our thoughts alone can it takes a long time. It takes a lot of practice to be aware of how we are talking to ourselves or talking about ourselves. But if we can be aware of, let's say, maybe our feelings that we're feeling. So maybe we're not aware of our thoughts. Maybe it's just our emotions that it creates awareness for us. So maybe we just start thinking, okay, I'm starting to feel really anxious and stressed. Okay, let's use that as a red flag. Okay, so now I'm aware that I'm feeling something. So remembering TFAR model. Okay, so let's backtrack. What thoughts are creating those feelings of unworthiness or not being good enough or whatever that is? Okay, great. So now that I have awareness around that, what actions can I take that are going to continue to work towards those results that I want? So just being aware of how those things can kind of come into our lives. And sorry, my dog just came in. Little Golden. Got any dog lovers out there? I hope so. But anyway, so it's just all about awareness. Being aware of those thoughts, being aware of imposter syndrome and how that creeps up, being aware of how those things that we talk about, what imposter syndrome sounds like. Another thing too is those unhealthy coping mechanisms, procrastination, just being aware of again, this all kind of ties in that if we see results that are not serving us or results that we don't want, let's remember that tool that we have, that we learned tonight, that TFAR, okay, let's reverse engineer results, actions, feelings, thoughts. I prefer cats, but show the dog. Maybe I will. Kev, maybe. I'll send a little, I'll share a picture with him of him in the follow-up. But anyway, so point of me saying all this is just really having awareness around these different patterns, because we have control over that. We don't just have to be victim to these patterns and these habits that continue to surface in our lives. We don't have to stay in this reactive state or constantly trying to catch up or constantly believing that we're not good enough. We have control to change those things. Sometimes we know where we want to be. We just don't have the tools to get there. So that's where I get to come in. That's where all of the Ama Vita coaches get to come in. It's really just providing you guys those tools to help you combat that. All right, I have talked enough. So if you guys, like I said, I know that this was a lot and it's a lot to process. And I always say this to all of my clients after all of our sessions: take time to let it all absorb and to let it all sink in. And then of course you'll have my email. So if you have any questions that come up after you've processed and digested all of this, please feel free to reach out. All right, so I'm gonna circle back to get in touch. So like I said, in the follow-up email, I'll include all of these links. So don't worry about copying these right now. You'll have my email. And then for some of you who might not know, we just launched a brand new membership program that is so much more simple, so much more valuable, and actually way more affordable than what we had going on before. And so if you sign up this month, because we just launched it this month, so if you sign up this month for either of the memberships, it's either 2 times a month or 4 times a month. You get your first session is free. And if you sign up, or if you pay ahead for 1 year, you get 25% off the entire year. So that's over $1,000. So if you guys have any questions about any of the memberships, I'll also include a link where you can schedule a free consult, whether it's a free consult about health coaching or anything that we talked about tonight, or a free consult to learn more about the memberships. I've got you, and we're here to answer any of your questions that you have. And I also will, I think I mentioned this, I'll include links for that resource page that I touched on before. So if you guys don't have any other questions for me, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I know most of you were probably expecting Coach Teague, but I hope that you enjoyed that, and I hope that you can take these tools with you to help you really move forward and really combat imposter syndrome, because again, this is something that's learned, which means we can unlearn it. You just have to really practice consistently these tools, break those patterns, create awareness so we can stop those negative loops and those negative beliefs of believing that we are not enough, because we most certainly are enough. So thank you all so much, so much. Again, any questions, any comments, anything like that, please just let me know. You will have my contact information. And I'll also include some other ways that you can connect with me there. So I will give you 7 more minutes back into your evening, and have a wonderful night. And I hope to see you guys all again soon. See ya.